The air was thick with expectation the moment Dylan and Wang stepped into the quiet corner of the cafe, a place Shen Yue had chosen with deliberate care. It was a hidden spot tucked between towering buildings in the heart of the city, where the glow from the street lamps seeped in through tall windows, casting gold ribbons across the small round table waiting for them. They had not been seen together in months, and yet here they were again, drawn back into each other's orbit as though no time had passed. For years, the world had speculated about them. Fans had written novels in comment sections, dissected every glance, every pause in interviews, every unexplained break in filming schedules. And while both had denied anything beyond friendship, those who paid closer attention saw something deeper in the way their eyes met. There was history in that gaze, 1,000 unspoken words lingering between them, each one heavy with memory. That night, Dylan slid into the seat opposite her, his expression unreadable but his posture leaning forward, as though he could not help but close the space between them. Shen Yue, in a pale blue coat, stirred her tea without lifting her eyes, but her lips curved ever so slightly, betraying the smallest smile. Outside, the world rushed past in streaks of headlights, but inside, time slowed to a steady, deliberate beat. Their conversation began with polite catching up, recent roles, travel, mutual friends, but it wasn't long before they drifted into the territory neither had dared enter for years. Shen Yue asked about the last project they had worked on together, the one that ended with whispers of tension and a quiet, awkward farewell. Dylan's eyes flickered, a flash of regret surfacing for a second before he masked it with a sip of coffee. "I always thought we'd have one more chance," he said softly, almost to himself. She looked at him then, truly looked, and the moment stretched, silent and raw. There was no mistaking it. Something had been left unfinished, and it still lived between them. From that meeting on, the sightings began again. They were seen leaving the same rehearsal building, though at different times. Paparazzi caught them in matching hoodies on what they both claimed were separate errands. Every denial only fueled the belief that they were rebuilding something, quietly and carefully, away from the noise. But what made their bond unbreakable wasn't just the romantic speculation, it was the trust that had been forged in the years they worked together. They had navigated sleepless shoots, grueling press tours, and the crushing weight of public opinion. When one faltered, the other steadied them. Dylan was there when Shen Yue received devastating career news, offering silent comfort during a late-night walk through the city. Shen Yue stood by Dylan during one of his most challenging roles, offering quiet encouragement when he doubted himself. Behind the glamour and stage smiles, they were two people who knew each other's real selves, the insecurities, the stubborn pride, the rare bursts of laughter that came only when walls were lowered. This was why so many believed their story wasn't finished. Some bonds fade with time, but others only deepen, strengthened by the storms they've endured. The whispers now speak of a new collaboration, one neither has confirmed, but both have hinted at in cryptic ways. A shared producer spotted in conversation with both. An anonymous crew member claiming they had already done a camera test together. Theories are endless, but one thing is clear. If Dylan and Shen Yue share the screen again, it will not be just another drama. It will be a reunion years in the making, carrying all the weight of what they've lived through apart. And maybe, just maybe, it will be the beginning of something more, a chapter that even they do not yet see fully, but one that feels inevitable to anyone watching closely. Because some stories refuse to end. They circle back, stronger, more deliberate, until both people realize that what they thought was over was only the interlude before the real beginning. The unbreakable bond between Dylan and Shen Yue isn't just about the past they've shared, it's about the future they may still choose, together. And if that day comes, it will be the moment fans across the world have been waiting for, the moment when fiction and reality blur, and the truth finally steps into the light. The night after the first whispers spread across social media, an unfamiliar energy swept through the streets where Dylan and Shen Yue were last seen together. It was a quiet Tuesday evening, yet the corner cafe, where they had once filmed a small but unforgettable scene years ago, now carried a strange kind of tension. People who happened to walk past swore they saw shadows in the upstairs windows. Some claimed it was just the staff preparing for another day, others insisted it was them. Two figures, seated at the same table, speaking in hushed tones. The truth was far more complicated. Dylan had not expected her to show up. For weeks, he had been told she was overseas, working on a project that had taken every ounce of her energy. But there she was, wearing that soft beige sweater he remembered from their last wrap party. Her hair fell loosely over her shoulders, framing a face that seemed both familiar and impossibly distant. She did not look up at first, almost as if she was weighing whether speaking to him would make things better or worse. He sat down without asking. The chair creaked slightly, the sound feeling louder than it should in the small room. She glanced at him then, her eyes unreadable. It was not the cold glare of a stranger, nor the warm recognition of an old friend. It was something in between, a silent acknowledgement that their paths had crossed again despite everything they had tried to do to avoid this moment. There were no pleasantries. No safe small talk about weather or work. Instead, Dylan leaned forward and said quietly, "You know we cannot keep pretending." She did not answer immediately. Outside, a bus roared past, its headlights briefly illuminating the glass between them. She traced the rim of her cup with her fingertip, as if gathering courage from the slow, deliberate movement. Finally, she said, "I thought we had agreed not to meet like this again." Her voice carried no anger, but there was weight in her words, a heaviness that spoke of promises made and broken. Dylan did not flinch. Instead, he reminded her of something she had said long ago during their first project together, that no matter what happened, they would always find their way back to each other, if it truly mattered. The silence that followed felt almost like a decision in itself. Shen Yue looked down at her coffee, steam curling upward between them like unspoken questions. She did not deny his words. She did not confirm them either. Somewhere deep in her eyes, however, was a flicker, not of hope, exactly, but of recognition. Of understanding that what connected them had never truly gone away, even when both had tried to bury it under schedules, interviews, and carefully curated public images. The moment was interrupted when the cafe door opened, and a man in a dark coat stepped inside. He ordered nothing, simply scanned the room before his gaze landed on their table. Dylan saw him too, and the tension between the three of them shifted instantly. Shen Yue stiffened, her hand curling slightly into a fist on the table. The man did not approach, but his presence was enough to remind them both that whatever conversation they thought they could have in private was no longer theirs alone. Later that night, long after they had left the cafe, people online began piecing together blurry photographs. A grainy image of Dylan's profile in the upstairs window. A flash of Shen Yue's beige sweater. The shadow of the man in the coat lingering at the entrance. The captions were wild, theories ranging from secret project negotiations to the possibility that they were preparing for an on-screen reunion. But those who knew better sensed there was something more fragile and dangerous at play. Something personal. Neither of them posted anything for the rest of the week. The industry buzz grew louder, feeding off the vacuum of their silence. But behind closed doors, Dylan replayed every second of that night. The way she had looked at him when he first sat down. The tremor in her voice when she said his name. The way she had not walked away even when the stranger in the coat made her visibly uneasy. All of it left him with the same unshakable thought. Their story was not finished.